Hi everyone, welcome back to Victor TV, and we are still on the Learn Business Analysis series with Victor Ndukwe. We've had three sessions so far. The first session, we looked at what is business analysis in itself and what exactly does a business analyst do. In the next session, we then talked about the underlying competencies, that's the skill set that you must have as a business analyst to carry out your job properly, right? Then in the third video, we learned about the different knowledge areas, and we've learned that we have six knowledge areas, and we also have six underlying competencies. Today, we'll be learning about something interesting. These concepts we've been learning so far since the beginning of this business analysis learning series are the foundational and the fundamental principles or concepts of business analysis. And it is with this concept that you get to understand what exactly is expected of you as a business analyst. What exactly are your deliverables? What are the things you need to do as a business analyst here? And then it's important you learn these fundamental principles and concepts, because every other thing you'll be learning, every other thing you'll be doing as a business analyst in this career path will be built on this foundation and on these fundamental principles. So you must ensure that you understand them and you know them very well. So today we'll be doing something very, very fundamental as well to your understanding of this concept, and that will be piecing it all together. We have a different topic that we are going to be looking at today, which is the business analysis techniques. But first, I will take my time to piece it together to understand, because it could be interwoven, right? It could be a little bit confusing. You've learned about competencies, you've learned about skill sets, you've learned about knowledge areas. Now you want to learn about techniques, and they can feel similar, right? They can feel like they're not different. Imagine you have a technique of brainstorming and a skill set of facilitation. You might not really know the difference, but it helps when you understand the interplay between these different areas, between these different competencies, and then how they are similar and how they are different. So without further ado, like I mentioned, we will be learning business analysis techniques today. But before going into business analysis proper, I will be showing us the connection or piecing together these different components and elements of business analysis. It is very, very important. So you have to pay attention to grab it. And if you're just joining this learning series, welcome. If this is your first time, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, whether you're just joining in or you've been watching our previous sessions, but you're yet to subscribe. Please do subscribe, as this encourages me, the facilitator, to do more and to push more of this content out. Also, share this video with your friends. Even if it might not be helpful for you as a person, there is someone out there within your friend list, within your network, that would need this kind of videos. So propagate the link, share it to people, share it on your WhatsApp status, on your social media as well. Business analysis can be a technical field and can be a non-technical field. So for people that are interested in going into tech, this is a very, very good entry point for them, because you get to learn so much, especially from these videos, and you get to practice a lot. And also, most importantly, there are videos that will be coming up that would address any area you are in your business analysis journey, whether you are a beginner, you are a novice, or you are a professional. It would address some important things that you need to learn. So you need to subscribe, you need to engage. So if there are questions that you have on some areas that are not clear, right, you can always use the comment section, ask questions, you know, ensure that you get clarification before the end of the session, or as you are watching, you drop your comments in the comment section, and I will be very available to answer them. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, my name is Victor Ndukwe on LinkedIn, and I will be very, very happy to connect with you and also hold your hands as we work together in this journey and in this new field of business analysis. Good. Having said that, once again, we'll be looking at the business analysis techniques today, and will be guided by this content. We'll introduce the topic, which we've already done. Then we'll establish our learning objectives, basically what we are supposed to gain outside or after this session. Then we'll do a brief recap of the last session. The last session was about knowledge areas of business analysis, and we learned that there are six of them. That is the business analysis, planning and monitoring. We have the elicitation and collaboration. We have requirement lifecycle management. We have strategy analysis. We have requirement analysis and design definition. And lastly, we have solution evaluation. So we saw the different tasks in these different knowledge areas, right? And I understand that these things can be confusing. We've mentioned task, we've mentioned skill sets, we're talking about techniques today, we've mentioned knowledge area, we've mentioned competencies. How do all of these things come to play? We are going to be seeing it when we connect everything together in today's session. Then we'll be looking at some BA techniques. So we have about 50 techniques according to IBA's business analysis body of knowledge. That is a Babok guide. There are 50 techniques. But in this session, we'll not be looking at the entire 50. We'll just be looking at a few of them, about 30 or 35 thereabout. And I expect us to take on the initiative to do more research and learn about the 50. And in this channel, under this learning series, we'll be having more walkthroughs, we'll be having more sessions, we'll be having more case studies to dissect. I'll even be bringing on my colleagues, business analysis professionals at work, to share with us how they perform their business analysis activities, right? So this is why you need to subscribe to this channel, and not just subscribe, engage, so that we'll be encouraged to push out more. We'll know the things you want. You give us ideas and suggestions on what you want to learn as a business analysis professional or newbie, and then you would also give us feedback on the delivery, on how we are doing, if we are doing well, or if there are areas we need to improve on. Yeah, then we'll conclude the session and we'll talk about what our next topic is going to be about. So quickly, for our learning objectives, we'll be summarizing the key learning points from the previous class, which is basically, like I mentioned, the 6 knowledge areas I've learned about. I wouldn't be going all over that again. So if you're yet to see the last video, the link will be in the description as well. Just click it to take you to the 3rd video in this series, where you get to learn about the 6 knowledge areas of business analysis. Then the other thing you'll be learning is then how we would establish all of these fundamental concepts together. So the concept of competency, the concept of tools, the concept of techniques, the concept of knowledge areas, how do we relate it in such a way that you can understand it easily and know where each of them applies and come up, right? So the issue of maybe them, it's been confusing, it's been interwoven, you'd grow past that issue and understand it in depth, right? Then the final thing we'll be doing is to then review some of the key techniques that you'd be using as your as a business analyst in relation to their knowledge area. So here we'll be breaking down techniques into the different knowledge areas where they apply. For instance, for elicitation and collaboration knowledge area, a key technique there is interviews, document analysis, workshop. We'll be seeing all of these techniques in relation to their knowledge area. So having established our learning objectives, let's dive right into the content for today. So the first thing I want us to understand is that business analysis is similar to any craft you can think of. It's similar to art, it's similar to construction, it's similar to music, right? And it is a craft. So whether you are you're analyzing a business problem, whether you're designing a new solution, there are some things that you rely on to hone your craft. There are things you rely on. There are elements that come into play to ensure that you perform your job as a business analyst effectively. Same way you see a magician pull out tricks, right, to entertain his crowd, and also alternate reality, right? The same way you get to see an artist use different tools to do different things. That is the same way a business analyst rely on 4 major elements to help them carry out their job properly. That is the skills, which are the things that you develop as you work, your personal traits, your technical skills, your hard skills, your soft skills, right? And then they are also involving the tools that you use. What are the tools, the instruments, the softwares that you use to carry out your job as a business analyst? Then the techniques. This involves the methodologies, right? The things that you also do, like the how to your job, right? Then the knowledge area, this is largely the what. So this can get confusing, but I'll just drive the point home by picking a craft that we all understand very well, say art or drawing, for instance. When we talk about knowledge area, A knowledge area for art could be planning a mural. So a mural is an art or a painting that you do on the wall, right? That is the activity. You plan that mural. What will be the size of my mural? Sorry, I'm looking at this place. I'm looking at the wall in my house to speak. So what would be the size of my mural? What would be the height of my mural? What color would I use for my mural, right? That is the knowledge area. You need to know what to do. And I also need to mention that knowledge areas in business analysis are six, right? We've already established that. But there are things that you must do across any project you're working on. The six of them, you must go through the six of them. It might not be linear. It might be you might get to go back and forth on each of them or on some of them, but you must touch base with the six of them for any project. Now, the amount of rigor or the level of detail that you have to go through for each of these knowledge areas would definitely differ across projects of different sizes, different scopes, and different contexts, right? But you must go through the six of them for you to get your job effectively done. So a knowledge area relating it to the art craft now would be planning a mural. Then your skill in the art craft would be creativity. How well can you think innovatively? How creatively can you think and come up with nice art ideas to execute? Your attention to detail. This is also a skill, right? Then you have your technique. Your technique here in art and drawing will be sketching. So for you to be able to do a mural, you have to understand how to sketch, because you need to sketch what your diagram would be on the wall first before you go about painting or spraying, whatever it is you want to do. Then the tool that you use now can be your pencil, your brush, maybe your Photoshop software, your spraying can and all. So we can see how these core elements interact with each other in the art craft. That is how they also interact with each other in the business analysis field. Your knowledge area, for instance, is elicitation and collaboration, right? Your skill here would then be your facilitation skill, will now be your listening skill, will now be your verbal communication or your written communication skill, right? Then your technique here would then be brainstorming, right? Your technique is now how you get to do your elicitation. So you do your elicitation by brainstorming, you do elicitation by document analysis, you do your elicitation by interviews, focus groups, and workshops. Then the tools that you use to do this would then be your Microsoft Docs for documentation or your Google Docs. Another tool could be your Another tool for elicitation could be your Google Meet, your Teams, or your Zoom. So you see how all of them come into play. Those four elements are very important. And I'd mentioned that your knowledge area is the what. This outlines the clear responsibilities that you have to do, and you must do them on every project, the whole six of them. The skill is who you are as a business analyst. What are the things you've developed over time as by virtue of being a business analyst, right? The abilities that you've taken on, that you've developed over time. Then the technique is now the how, the method to the madness, right? The methodologies on how you carry out your business analysis project. And your tool is the with what. What are the instruments? What are the softwares that you use to carry out this business analysis, tasks, techniques, skills, and activities? So this is how they relate to each other. I hope we've been able to understand this perfectly. Now, we'll be diving straight into these techniques. And like I'd mentioned, the techniques are broken down into different knowledge areas, right? So for the example I gave for art, if you want to plan a mural, in your planning a mural, the technique of painting would not come in, right? It is sketching as a technique that will come in. It is color blending that would come in, right? So each knowledge area have the set of techniques that apply. Sometimes a technique might apply or appear in different knowledge areas, but they would then have different meaning and how they are used in these knowledge areas. You're going to see this in the next slides, right? So the first knowledge area we'll be looking at is the business analysis, planning, and monitoring. And I had mentioned when we looked at the knowledge area session, in case you've not watched it, please do well to search the playlist. You're going to see the third video there, which is the knowledge areas part of it. So here, this is where you get to plan. Remember, if you don't plan your projects, you are heading for failure. So this is where you get to plan what you're going to be doing in your business analysis approach. This is where you plan the approach. This is where you also plan how you're going to monitor the success of your business analysis project or activities. And the different techniques here, we have just 5 that we'll be looking at. It is not exhaustive. Like I said, we have about 50, so we're just looking at some of them. I would implore you to do your own research and get the ones that are not listed here. But here we have stakeholder analysis and mapping. So here you get to plan. This is the technique that helps you understand or identify your stakeholders. You get to analyze their influence, their interest, and what are the expectations that they have for this project. It is when you understand these things that you're able to ensure that you are engaging them in the most optimal way, right? And each of these techniques, for most of these techniques, we are going to be having separate sessions to discuss them in details, where we'll be having maybe walkthroughs, case studies, and we'll see how these techniques are being applied in practice. So for my wealth of experience, I have applied most of these techniques across different projects. So I'll be bringing that on board to help you understand how these things work in reality. But here we'll just be highlighting them and going in less detail. But when we get into the main topic where we are addressing each of the technique, we'll go in detail and we'll see how we can execute this technique and become better at them. The next one is business analysis approach definition. No two projects are the same. Same way, no two approach to business analysis function would be the same on those projects. So you need to be able to plan your approach and define what this approach is going to be. Oh, would I engage my stakeholder this way? Will I use draw.io to draw my process map? Am I going to be using focus group? Am I going to be using interviews? Am I going to be using workshops? You plan all of these things and you document it down so that it will serve as a roadmap for you as you are going through your activity, as you're going through these knowledge areas and carrying out these tasks. You already have a roadmap that is guiding you through. You're not just running helter-skelter. And the importance of this is that if you allow if you don't plan these things, your stakeholders would definitely plan it for you. And stakeholders are prone to dragging a project in their favor. So if you don't have a focused direction, or if you don't have a roadmap that is guiding you, you'll find yourself almost appealing to every stakeholder, and that would definitely cause failure for your project. Another technique we'll be looking at here is risk analysis and management. As a business analyst, what is at the top of mind for you is bringing about positive change to your organization, achieving success within your project, right? So anything that will stand in the way between where you are and you achieving success on your project is a risk. It is a barrier. Now you have to identify them. Then you have to find ways to manage them or mitigate them. So either you tolerate them, that is, you accept it, you defer it, you transfer it, right? Or you avoid it totally. These are the different mitigation techniques that are involved in risk analysis and risk identification or risk management. We're going to have a session as well where we'll look at this in detail, but it's very important that before the project, you plan how you're going to manage risk and how you're going to monitor risk throughout the life cycle of the project. Also, you plan your performance metrics and key performance indicators. That's your KPIs. This is a very important technique because for your project to be successful, you have to define what success means for you on this project. Or else, at the end of the project, anything will look like success. When you build a website, you might be getting excited that you're having 10,000 visits. But whereas what is really success for you in the context of that project is the conversion. So if you don't set the KPI, if you don't set the performance metrics, you might end up celebrating vanity metrics, vanity success that does not contribute to the overall value, that does not give value to your stakeholders. You end up celebrating it. And aside this is also the technique that helps you define the success or the performance of your business analysis approach. So this method I've taken, this approach I've taken, right, to perform my business analysis activities, how do I measure the effectiveness? This is important because you're going to work on another project and you need to know how effective some of these approaches are, how effective some of these things you're going to be doing on this particular project is, so that you can then replicate it in subsequent projects that are going to come up. I hope you understand that. Then we have the final technique we'll be looking at here is estimation technique. So this is where you get to assess the effort the time and financial resources it will take for your business analysis activities. As a BA, you need to understand estimation, because estimation helps you prioritize projects, it helps you prioritize requirements, it helps you assess the time and resources it will take to develop and implement your solution, right? So there are different estimation techniques that would help you, and we are going to be seeing this in subsequent videos as well. So these are some of the techniques that fall under the business analysis, planning, and monitoring knowledge area. The next one we'll be looking at is the elicitation and collaboration. Like I already mentioned, elicitation is when you, with the act of questioning, drive out and dig deep and get the needs, the pain points, the root causes, the areas of improvement, the issues that is pertaining to your project or your solution from your stakeholders. And this is how you are able to um, manage the entire engagement that would help you ask these questions, the meetings, the facilitations, and the collaborations, because you're not going to be doing it on your own. You'll be doing it alongside your stakeholders. So it's important that you know how to elicit information and also collaborate with them to get more information from you. And the different techniques that are here are what we'll be looking at. The first one is observation or job shadowing, right? This is where you go to your stakeholders or your end users and you sit with them and just observe them. You watch them do their job, you watch them carry out their processes, you watch them interact with existing solutions with the aim of getting feedback from them. Now, observation or job shadowing can be of two types. You have the active one, where as you are watching them, as you're observing them, you're also asking questions in between. You are also interjecting to say, okay, how long does this take? Or why did you do this like this? Oh, okay, I can see why you did this. You ask questions, you take notes as well. Then we have the passive observation, and this is where they don't even know you're observing them. You're just passively observing to get tacit knowledge. So knowledge that they will not readily tell you, or things that they wouldn't want to tell you. You want to observe it. And then you also document. So all the techniques in elicitation and collaboration knowledge area would involve you taking in this feedback and then documenting it and sharing it with your stakeholders for them to confirm that what you've documented or what you've observed or what you've elicited is actually correct. In fact, this is the confirm elicitation result task under this knowledge area. So that is for observation or job shadowing. The next one is document analysis. So now you're trying to get information. You don't necessarily always have to call your stakeholders every time to get information. You could review documents, existing documents, maybe project guides, project documentation, standard of procedures, user guides, and organizational documents that can inform you and that can give you relevant information about your business so that you can have much more understanding about the business, about the current organization and process that you are trying to analyze, right? And again, the end product of this is to document every information you've gotten and then share it back to your stakeholders. Then the next one we'll be looking at, next technique is focus groups. So this is basically gathering your stakeholders together with the aim of discussing the project, discussing possible solutions, discussing identified pain points, leading them to put heads together to collaborate and get different representative of your stakeholder groups, your users, the underwriting guys, your project sponsor, project director, project managers, development team, everybody are together in a room, and then you use your skill, your facilitation skills to get information, to get feedback from them and help them agree, on what the pain points are, what the expectations are, and what the deliverables should be on the project. Another one again that we have under this knowledge area, another technique is brainstorming. And this is where we literally get people together in a room and we try to pick their brain so that we can get much more ideas. The first solution or the first idea you get is not always the best idea. So you need to generate more ideas. And what better way is there to generate ideas than doing it together with your stakeholders, right? So you bring them in a room and you generate wide range of ideas, and you also discuss solutions collaboratively. In fact, one tip with engaging your stakeholders is that the more you involve them, the more they are more into the solution, the more they are carried along, the more they feel or have a sense of ownership about the project and about the solution whenever it is finally developed. And you see them adopting it faster because they see it as their own. Oh, this is our baby. This new tool, we are the ones that did it together. We ran it together. So do you see them adopting more than when you are doing things on your own and making all of the decisions? Then the next one is surveys and questionnaires. This one is pretty straightforward. As a BA, you must understand this technique because sometimes you want to get feedback, right? You want to be able to collect information about a large audience, and you might not be able to speak to all of them maybe in a session. You might not be able to speak to all of them in a focus group. So you prepare your questions, you prepare your open-ended questions, or a blend of open-ended and close-ended questions. So open-ended question will be questions that they don't just answer in one word. You know, they get to explain, and as they're explaining, you are getting more insights. You know, you have these surveys maybe through a Microsoft form or a Google form or a paper, then you share it to them in form of questionnaires and surveys, and they fill it, then you get it back, and then you analyze it to really understand what is happening there. So when you analyze, you come up with different insights that you also review with your stakeholders to confirm that what you've gotten is actually accurate. Then the final technique we'll be looking at here, which again is not the final in its sense, it's that this is what we are looking at. There are still more out there that you should research on and know more of, is the interviews, right? So interviews is where you have one-on-one or group interviews with particular set of stakeholders so that you're able to get detailed information from them. So maybe I'm building something for HR. I need to now meet HR and speak to them to get their own requirements. I speak to maybe legal or compliance to get their own requirements as well. Speak to data management, right? I conduct these interviews with them and derive information. And every information that has been derived, of course, will then have to be reviewed and revalidated by my stakeholders. So that's it for elicitation and collaboration. The next one we'll be looking at is strategy analysis. And for strategy analysis, this is a technique, this is a knowledge area where you are basically trying to understand the business environment, right? The current state, where your business is right now, where your process is right now, where your organization is right now. What is the current state? What is happening, right, in this current state? And then you are defining what the organizational vision is for this particular process, what the vision is for this business, what the vision is for this organization. And then you are trying to create a map that will bridge your current state and your future state. It's like I want to write an exam in Q3, that's the third quarter of the year. And here I am now, I've not registered for the exam. So in doing my strategy analysis, I have to understand where I am now, how much it will take me to register, what are the things that I needed to register, and I write a plan on how I'll get to my future state, which is writing the exam in Q3. So this is basically gap analysis, strategy analysis, and the techniques that are involved here is root cause analysis. I've talked about this in other sessions. You need to be able to understand the true cause of a problem. You are not just taking what they tell you is the symptom. Oh, people are no longer converting. People are dropping off at checkout in our website, right? That is not the main cause of the issue. You have to be able to dig deep. Maybe we are using the 5 whys approach, or you use the fishbone diagram approach, or you use the Ishikai, you know, different approaches exist for you to do your root cause analysis so that you can really get to the end, to the real cause, the true cause of the problem. Because it is if only you've solved the true cause of the problem that you'll be sure that that problem will not resurface again, right? So it's very important. Another technique here is benchmarking. So benchmarking is simply, it stems from deep research, market research, competitor research, customer research, industry trends and patterns. You understand this enough for you to say, okay, this is the level where the industry is playing at right now. This is the acceptable level of how this process should perform. So this level will be the benchmark for me. I will not go lesser than this. This is what is obtainable in the industry, and this is what I'm going to follow, right? And you can also do this for your processes. You can do this for the solutions. You can even use this to understand what is the general pain point or what is the general need for this particular project in the industry, or across the organization. So it can be industry-based benchmarking, it can be organizational-based benchmarking, where you are benchmarking against other teams or other processes within your organization. And it follows from, you know how we have the best student in class and everybody wants to be like him, and then you note the level at which he's playing and you're like, you set his level as your own standard as well, right? So that you would be able to reach that level. But one thing about benchmarking is you have to be careful. So it's a thin line between getting the standard practice and just blindly imitating what exists out there. In a way, if you're not careful, it will stifle your own innovation, and it would cause you to not have your blue ocean strategy or your blue ocean approach to getting things done. You just be following the crowd, sometimes even blindly, without knowing what would work for your business. So it's a good technique, but you have to be very tactical when you are using it so that you won't fall into these pitfalls I just mentioned. Then we have the business model canvas. This is where this is like a canvas where we define 9 key points of our business model, our unique value proposition, our customer segmentation, our cost, our revenue model, our channels, our customer acquisition, and the different areas. There are 9 of them. So the reason why I want to do this is because for you to be able to come up with good solutions that will really meet and give your customers or your stakeholders value, you need to understand the business enough. Because if you don't understand the business, you will not be recommending solutions from a place of informed knowledge, right? You need to come from a place of information, from a place of data, from a place of knowledge about the organization, the industry, the business, how your business works, how do we make money, how do we lose money, what are the different teams, how do we get customers, how do we maintain customers, what are our channels. You need to understand this for you to be able to come up with nice solutions, for you to be able to define your future state. Then we also have the SWOT analysis, and SWOT basically means strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Under SWOT, this is where we define as a business, what is my strength? It could be that, oh, I'm digitally inclined. I have a very strong brand. People know me out there. We are an international brand. We have a group. So we are known not just in the country, we are known globally as well. Your strengths could encompass your customer base. You have a wide array of products. You also have weaknesses. Weaknesses are things that you need to get better on. They are not areas that you've identified that, oh, I'm weak in this area and I shouldn't do anything about it, right? These are areas that you've identified that you need to improve on. Maybe bad customer service, maybe untrained staff, maybe defect in your products that you're selling, probably, anything could be a weakness. And I'm going to show you a relationship between these 4 areas. That is your SWOT. Then you have your opportunities. So because of the fact that you have been long in the market, you have so many partners. So opportunities could be you leveraging these partnerships for growth, leveraging these partnerships, leveraging your customer referrals to get more market share, to get more customers, right? To increase your customer base. You understand? Then your threats could be internal or external. Your threats could even come from the set of staff that you employed, maybe bad company culture fit. It could also be changes to government regulations, right? It could pose a threat. And one very good relationship about the SWOT analysis is that your threats that are not early identified or mitigated or controlled grows to become your weaknesses. And your weaknesses worked on and improved on becomes your opportunities. And your opportunities leveraged becomes your strength. So you need to see how these 4 connect so that you can use it to the best of your ability. So as a business analyst, you need to be able to understand how to carry out SWOT analysis, because this is where you get to understand your company's real potentials. And then you can tailor your solutions towards those areas to get the most value. And the final technique we'll be looking at here is the most analysis. So this is where you understand and you're also defining your company's mission, your company's objective, your company's strategies and tactics, so that you'll be sure that your solution that you're bringing aligns your overall organizational structure, overall organizational culture, and you're not bringing up something that is outside what your company is capable of, what your company is actually focused on at the moment. So there will be no misalignment between your solution and your organizational focus. The next knowledge area we'll be looking at and techniques. I hope you're following and you still understand. You can ask questions wherever you feel like you're missing it. But the next one we'll be looking at is now requirement analysis and design definition. So you've been able to analyze your requirements. You've gotten your requirements. Now we are now translating these requirements into designs, into usable designs. And we have the non-functional requirements. So basically, non-functional requirements, I like to call them NFRs. NFRs are, give me a minute. So NFRs are requirements that you define to judge the operation of your system or your solution. So while the functional requirements will tell you that I want my system to be able to do this, and do this. I want to be able to log in. I want it to have this button. I want it to be able to collect my card details and allow me pay. Right? Your non-functional requirements are not tangible requirements. They are things that you use to define the performance of your system, right? So I need my system or my solution to be up and running 100% of the time. I need it to be usable. I need it to be interactable for new users. I need it to have good UX. I need it to have good performance, usability. That is non-functional requirements. We are going to see in subsequent sessions how you get to define your functional and your non-functional requirements. Usually you define these things in your BRD. That's your business requirement document. You're going to learn all of this in the coming section. And this is why it is important you subscribe to this channel and you turn on your notification so that you'll be able to get the best out of these things. I also have another technique, a very important one, which is user stories. So user stories is basically how you tell the story of your users from their own perspective. And it is done in an interesting way. There's a format to it. So let's say I'm building a website and I want to tell the story of a login feature, right? I want to build a login feature and I want to tell it from my user's perspective. I would say, as a user, so I define the actor. As a user, then I define the action. I want to enter my login details. Then you define the outcome so that I can access my dashboard or my profile, right? It is this user story that I've written now. You see how simple it is? It is this user story that I will then take to my developer to say, guy, look at this user story, build it. So basically, when you've gathered requirements, you break your requirements into different features and you break your features into different user stories. It is the user story documentation that you then send to your developers, and that is what they will use to understand the solution more better, right? They understand the solution better, rather. There's no such thing as more better. That's a tautology. Pardon me. So we also have a very interesting technique called prototyping. By the way, we'll be learning how to write user stories in coming sections, right? So don't worry that I'm not going too deep in this place. I just want you to know these techniques and maybe even note them, do research on them, and you can suggest them to me when I'm making videos for the ones I may miss or the ones that I might not remember about to do deeper videos on. So to prototyping is basically you building a lean version or a replica of your solution. So this is important because you don't want to spend so much money building your solution straight up and your stakeholders will say it is not useful. You must have spent time, energy, resource, and even money to get that up. So instead, what you do is you build a lean version of it. You build a replica, something that mirrors the main solution, and you tell them, give me feedback on this. When they give you feedback, you use that feedback now to refine it and then now build the solution. That way, there will be less reworks, there will be less mistakes, and there will be less mishaps or misalignments between you and your stakeholders. So prototyping is very, very important. You use tools like maybe Figma, use tools like Balsamic to do your prototypes, your wireframes, and all. You're going to learn about all of those as well. Another technique is your process modeling. So most times the stakeholders you'll be engaging are stakeholders that don't have time to read lengthy documents. You know, they say a picture speaks more than 1,000 words. So you are basically picturing or creating a business process into a diagram called a process flow or a process map. And it's this process map that you take to your stakeholders to say, this is my understanding of your process. Let's review it together to see if there are any areas that there are gaps, or if there are areas that I need to identify that you need to tell me where I've missed it. They will then look at it, and at a glance, they can tell you, oh, you missed this place. This one should go here, not here, right? So it's very important you learn how to map processes. This is where your draw.io comes in. It's a tool you use to map processes. Your Balsamic, your Lucid Charts, Microsoft Visio, and the likes. This is where they come in. So you get to learn how to use it and improve on it as you go. There will be a session to teach you process map. There will be a session to teach you these things so you can learn it very well. They also have data flow diagrams. So this is how you also map how data will flow through your system. From when you collect data, how you validate the input. Oh, in the space of phone number, it must not be more than 11. You must not put a letter, you know, it cannot take in some, you specify that it cannot take in some symbols. You also do same for email. Then you also generate, you also document the outflow, the output of this data you've collected, where this data will be stored, you know, and all of these interesting processes that happen in managing and processing your data. You do that using your data flow diagrams. You're also going to be learning about this. Though in most organizations, it is the data management office that actually handles this, but there is a business intelligence and data perspective to business analysis. So it's expected that you also learn your data flow diagrams and know how to use it as a technique. Then we have the business rules analysis, very, very important part that is sometimes neglected, right? For business rules, this is how businesses tighten up their processes. This is the nuts and the bolts that are tightened up. So sometimes you might go to a website and they'll tell you that you can't buy product A unless you've bought product B. Now, whoever built that website as a BA took in that business rule and put it there. So when you go to buy product A, it's not allow you check out because the condition has not been fulfilled for you to check out because you've not bought product B. They tell you to go back. This way, these rules might have been put in for different reasons. So when you're gathering your requirements, when you're engaging your stakeholders, you want to ensure that you are getting the entire business rules from them. You understand it very well. You understand why these business rules are there, because sometimes business rules are passed from stakeholder to stakeholder across the organizational years, right? It's just going without really knowing why we are doing these things. So once you understand it and you validated and the reason for having this business rule is valid, ensure that you also implement it in the system that you are building, on the solution that you are building, because this is how you get to help the business tighten up their process and cut leakages from cost or reduce financial losses, right? So that is all for requirement analysis and design definition. The final technique we'll be looking at is solution evaluation. Now, you've done this entire knowledge area. Now you've built your solution. How do we evaluate our solution to be sure that it actually delivered the intended value to our stakeholders? So this is where you define your acceptance and evaluation criteria. This is a technique, a very important technique. Remember when we spoke about user story, we said we tell the user's story from, like we define the user's need from their perspective, right? So for the login feature, I gave an example to say, as a user, I want to enter my login credentials so I can access my dashboard or my profile. Your acceptance criteria follows this format of giving when then statement. Giving when then. So giving is like what should have already happened for me to be able to use this feature. So giving, I already have a login detail that is valid. When I enter my login detail into the login screen provided by the developer, then the system should display my profile or my dashboard. You see how we use it to evaluate if we've been able to meet the need of the user. If these things do not happen, that means your acceptance criteria has not been met. So we can't check that out. That means that project or that solution did not meet the need of our stakeholders. They also have document analysis, similar to the document analysis that we saw under elicitation. But in this case, we are now checking all our project documents, our BRDs, our artifacts or deliverables that we've developed alongside the project to see if the intended need or the intended requirement or expectation for this project has been met, right? You review them, you check in with your stakeholders, and be sure that you've met all of their needs. They also have a technique of survey and questionnaire similar to what we've seen previously, where we then check in with them to say, I want to be able to get your feedback. Because again, as a BA, you're not just building and leaving them. You need to do continuous evaluation. For a project that I managed for the past 3 years at work, I frequently, I think quarterly now, I send surveys to say, tell me how you use CaseMaker. Tell me your pain point. Tell me your areas of improvement, and my sales advisors, they feel it, and I get to see where I need to improve and work on. They also have benchmarking, which is basically this solution that you've built, how does it operate, or what is the standard outside the organization, in the industry, or even in the organization within other teams, right? You set the standard. But again, like I mentioned, you need to be mindful of the pitfall of innovation stifling, right? We are no longer creative, you're just following blindly. Then we have observation, basically watching your stakeholders, watching your users as they use your product, as they use your solution, and documenting areas of enhancement or identifying usability issues. Then the last technique, but not the least, very important, is lessons learned. This is a technique where personally I use this a lot to say, this is not the last project you'll be working on, right? And you might be even handing over this project to someone else. You might be onboarding more BAs onto this project. So you need to document the insights, the learnings, the methodologies and tools that worked for you from the beginning of the project to the end. You document it with the aim of using it to reinforce your learning and to inform your future initiatives. That way you spend more time failing on different things because you already have a guide from past experience. They say experience is the best teacher, or experience when applied is the best teacher. So this is where the lessons learned technique comes in. If you've watched this far, thank you so much. We've come to the end of the BA techniques session. So just to conclude and to wrap up, we've seen how the different components interact with each other, your skills, the tools, the knowledge area, and the techniques. And we've seen how the techniques interact or relate with the different knowledge areas that we have. There are more techniques to be studied, guys. So do your research. And like I said, in subsequent videos, I'll be touching on some of these techniques in details, right? I'll be going deep into it through walkthroughs, case studies, we'll be reviewing some tools. I'll be teaching you how to do some things. So my own experience as a business analyst. And I would also be interviewing some business analysis professional from work, my colleagues, my friends, and they'll also share with you how they get to do these things, how they get to carry out their business analysis function. And I think for our next video, we'll be having a day in the life of a business analyst, where I'll share with you what happens from the early morning when I wake up as a business analyst to in the evening when I close for the day at work. So you can see how some of these things come into play in practice. Thanks so much for watching this far. I know it's been a long session, but I like to think that it was very insightful and it was a good one. So please like this video, comment, engage, subscribe, right? And turn on the notification bell so that whenever I drop new videos, you'll be notified. And then please share this video with your friends, and I'll catch you in the next one. Do have a great day ahead. Bye. Thank you.